I just want to reiterate a couple of things that I heard that I think are important. One, Luis said, the system is failing and people are hungry. We can do better. And Luis always makes me feel like we can do better as a nation. So please support FRAC. Rick said the greatest form of dignity is giving people a voice. And we need to think of food and. So please donate to U.S. Hunger. And I think Clayton just launched some sort of political campaign. So anyone who wants to get on board with him, I think they'll know where to find him. So from here, we're going to take a look at how we can feed our optimism in a conversation with Karuna Rawal, the Chief Revenue Officer and Chief Marketing Officer for Nature's Fynd. Please give her a round of applause, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Always fun to talk to you. I also want to thank you for the Nature's Fynd delicious breakfast items that were brought in. I think there's yogurt, pancake Sammys with meatless pie. Am I pronouncing that okay?
That's right.
And dairy-free cream cheese and bagels.
So hopefully people got to try some of that this morning, yes? Okay.
That's great. That's great. So I want to start off, obviously you're producing great products, but Nature's Fynd, for me, it goes beyond that. And I'm wondering if you can explain it to the folks in this room.
Yeah, so first of all, amazing to see this crowd, and thank you for having me. We're delighted to be here and so excited that so many of you got to try products that we've all been working on for a while, so it's exciting. But just to tell you a little bit about the company, so Nature's Fynd actually started as a research project for NASA, who you heard from earlier. So the company really was on a mission with NASA to look at how life could thrive on environments outside of Earth. I think you heard a little bit about that earlier. And that actually took them to Yellowstone National Park, where they discovered a fungi, so not a plant, not an animal, the third kingdom, a microbe, which turned out to be pretty remarkable. So it is, as they studied it, they discovered it was over 50% protein, 30% fiber, has vitamins and minerals, and most importantly was thriving, another word we've used a lot today, thriving in an environment with really minimal resources. So you think about the hot springs, any of you have been to Yellowstone National Park, not exactly a comfortable space to grow in, but it's, it was able to continue to grow using very, very few resources, which is actually what we as a planet kind of need to learn how to do, right? So, so that led to additional work that led us to really think about how to grow that protein so we never have to go back to Yellowstone. We took a tiny sample and think about it kind of like a sourdough starter. So now we grow net new protein for the world every 3 to 4 days. And using that protein, we're able to make both dairy-free and meatless foods. And you got to try our first 3 products, which I'm very excited.
It is so cool, and it is so interesting to think of these kinds of collaborations and collaboration and partnership we've talked a ton about today. And so I'm wondering, one is, you discovered so much through this collaboration, and you're continuing to use that research to develop new things. What does that mean for the future of the company? And then I have a follow-up about what that means for the future of other companies.
Yeah, I think, what I love about our story as a marketer, it's a pretty good story, right? But I think what it really speaks to is this idea of partnership, as you just said. So, obviously Yellowstone National Park, being, and NASA being, part of the government and really figuring out how do we bring all of us together, because ultimately it's going to take solutions from a wide variety of resources to actually solve the challenge we're in. If you think about our population is growing, we're headed to 10 billion, and in the face of climate change, we're running out of land and water. So we've got to figure out other solutions. And I think the implications, as you talked about, is there's so much opportunity for us to kind of come together, different parts of the ecosystem working together to solve these big challenging problems, because none of us can do it alone. But I love the story of nature and science coming together, which is our story. We really started in nature, but it took science and NASA and all of their capabilities and just all of the work that was done by our scientists to really uncover what we could do with this. And initially the company actually was looking at biofuels, and then as we started to look at this is really interesting. These properties actually lend themselves to food, and we have a huge food challenge. And protein, as we think about, all of the challenges we're going to have in the coming years, we're going to have enough carbohydrates. We all have more than enough fats, but protein is going to be the challenge, right? And as you think about, areas of famine, as you think about, other parts of the world, one of the things that we're working on, we have a grant with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation that allows us to create a decentralized protein fermentation system so that we can literally go into areas where there, is a need for food and use local inputs. That's one of the great things about this fungi. It is not a picky eater, so we can be in other parts of the world and leverage whatever resources are there in order to grow new protein. So it gives us optimism and hope, right? That we can solve some of these challenges. Again, it's not going to be done by any one company or any one entity. It's going to take all of us working together. Yeah,
these big, wicked problems that we're talking about, whether it's food or fuel or anything else, really need we all need to come together in different ways. I'm wondering, there's so many companies now and so many entrepreneurs and innovators interested in mycelium and as a meat substitute and for other things. I'm wondering how important you think these proteins, I know you think they're important in the face of the climate crisis, but there will likely, hopefully not in the next couple of years, likely another pandemic, likely another kind of shock that really hits us. How will mycelium, as a food product, help us sort of get through those shocks?
Yeah, I think it's kind of what I was saying earlier. Because they require such minimal resources to grow, can grow in 3 to 4 days. If you think about it, being able to generate new protein in a very short amount of time could be really helpful in times when we are, strapped for food. And it's a very healthy, that's the other thing I want to reinforce. It's a complete vegan protein. It's got all of the amino acids. And so you are able to get something that's highly nutritious, that's highly sustainable. In terms of land and water, we use 99% less land, 99% less water, emit only 6% of the greenhouse gas emissions in scale. So a fraction of the resources that traditional agriculture takes. So it really allows us in those times of need to be able to do something that allows us to feed people pretty quickly.
And can you talk a little bit about the cost compared to other proteins?
So right now we are, probably comparable to, what you would see in the plant-based area, but the goal long-term is to be, equivalent to animal-based proteins. So that is the work that we are doing. Obviously, that takes scale. We are very early in our journey. And so it's going to take some time. For, if you look at legacy meat and dairy industries, they've been around for a long time. They get a lot of support from the government, and we're working actively, as we're looking at the new, My Plate work that's being done in the government to really include fungi-based proteins as an additional source of healthy, nutritious protein.
You mentioned earlier the grant from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation about decentralized fermentation and sort of that process. I want to dig a little bit deeper into this because I've had this wonderful experience to travel all over the world, 70 plus countries, 26 countries in sub-Saharan Africa in particular, where the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation invests heavily. How do you imagine this looking? How does this work with communities who might not have heard of this before, are used to growing subsistence crops plus commodity crops? How does this all work?
Yeah, so I think a lot of it is education because we are so new. I mean, a lot of you are probably hearing about fungi-based protein for the first time. So a lot of the work that we have to do is about education. But I think the great thing is, as part of that grant, we're working in sub-Saharan Africa and Asia with smallholder farmers. So we're really trying to make sure that those farmers have additional resources and additional means in order to improve their livelihoods, because it is really challenging to be farming in a lot of those parts of the world. So this is something that is going to take some time for us to help educate that we can now grow a protein in a completely new way. We're talking about using potentially shipment containers. Right now we grow our protein, if you think about it, it's like a vertical farm. So if you came to our facility in Chicago, you would see we grow, it's 4 stories high, and we grow in trays that look like if you walked into like a cheese or a cheese chamber, and there's racks and racks of trays that are growing new protein every 4 days or so. So we're going to take that, miniaturize it, and be able to take it to different parts of the world to help grow more protein. We're probably going to talk about NASA in a minute, but we've also been able to really miniaturize it, and actually we sent a small protein factory on SpaceX 25 in, I think it was July of 2022, and demonstrated that we can actually grow this in space. And the cool part is when we analyzed the protein, it had all of the same nutritional and other properties, which is also very exciting because if you think about going to space for a long space journey, you're not going to be able to take a cow or a chicken with you. You're going to have to figure out some other way of having protein when you end up colonizing Mars or wherever it is we're going.
Yeah, it's really
that
a big
exoplanet discussion was fascinating.
It's so fascinating, and it is a big innovation to think about. The lab, there's been cultured meat grown in space. Now this, there's all this sort of opportunity, and I wonder, as a company, you know, as you get more opportunity in this space with mycelium, other companies are going to want that as well. Do you see a lot of competition happening?
I mean, there is some. I think there's, you know, mycelium is becoming one of those areas that I think more and more companies are looking at because of all of the things we've talked about. But I kind of come from the consumer lens of more choice is better,
right.
And we should all be in this to try and give consumers as much choice as possible and meet them where they are on their journey. And I think, you know, we discussed that earlier because not every, you know, you don't need to be 100% vegan. You can start with one meal. You can start with, you know, whatever it might be. And every single one of us has an opportunity 3 to 5 times a day when we eat to make a different choice.
Some of us more.
Some of us more. Yeah.
Are there any other products? I know you're really focused on the protein food, the protein part of this right now, but there's so many cool bags. I'm looking at everyone's bags in the audience. Bags can be made out of this leather, you know, leather-like products. Do you think about that as the company grows?
Yeah, we are, as a company, we are really, you know, just looking at what are all the opportunities that this opens up. And you're absolutely right. I mean, our focus right now is on food, but there's areas well beyond food. I mean, mycelium have been used, as you said, in materials. They've been used for construction. There's a lot that we don't know, and we're still learning about mycelium. So yes, our company, we have a lot of scientists who are exploring all these different areas. And, you know, who knows? We may be coming to you with some new stuff in the coming years.
I can't wait. So, like, tell me about the future. Is there anything you can sort of share with us about the future of Nature's Fynd, what you expect for the company, you know, next year at this time or 5 years from now?
So the exciting thing for us is this is the year we are now available nationally in Whole Foods with all 3 of our categories. So please support us, which would be great. There's coupons lots of places too if you'd like to grab one of those. And then, you know, we are starting with the natural channel because that's where we really are finding our core early adopter consumers. Our goal obviously is to go beyond that and expand into retail because if we're going to, you know, deliver our mission, we're going to need to, you know, get more people to change how they eat. Food service is another area we're really interested in. We were, you know, very focused on building a consumer brand and educating consumers, which is why we started in consumer retail, but now we're going to be able to take our core ingredient, which is called Phi, and if you look at all of our packaging, you'll see there's what I call an Intel Inside badge that allows us to now take that into food service. So we have a lot of food service opportunities we're exploring. And we really believe there's a huge opportunity with, you know, if you think about college campuses where a lot of young people are really adopting new and, you know, eating habits and learning about food. We think there's a huge opportunity there. So you're going to see us, you know, go into a number of new areas. But we also have a lot of other, I mean, hundreds of products that we've made using Phi. So if you think about our Phi protein, there's kind of 3 different forms. It grows in a sheet that's like almost like, think about it like a tofu skin or a chicken skin. And we use that to make our meatless products. We can also take it, blend it with water, create a milk, which we use to make our dairy-free products. And then there's a 3rd form, which is a dried powder or flour, which we can also use to make shelf-stable products like pastas and breads and a whole range of other things. So lots of exciting stuff. If you ever come to our kitchens, you'll get to try.
Yeah.
But we're just, you know, we're trying to be disciplined about, we have to build some consumer momentum, and surviving on retail shelves is one of the biggest challenges. Getting on there is half the battle. The bigger battle is making sure that people end up buying.
Staying there for sure.
Yeah.
And talking about that innovation, and because we'll be talking to a group of chefs later on today, can you talk about the role of chefs in this process?
Yeah, absolutely. So actually the culinary team that we have is fantastic, and they actually, you know, sit in my organization. So we're very closely partnering together to figure out, you know, how do we educate and how do we create foods that, number one, the most important thing, you know, I've learned in my 25, I guess almost 30 years now of being in the food and beverage business is it has to taste delicious. As much as we keep hearing consumers say, I want to buy food that's more sustainable, there is a gap, right? We call it the values gap between what they say and what they do. So my focus, that's why culinary is incredibly important, it has to taste delicious. And so we started out with kind of making that the gold standard. In fact, our culinary advisor is Chef Eric Repaire from Le Bernardin, 3-star Michelin chef, and he's put phi on his menu at Le Bernardin. So if you go to New York City, you'll find our protein on the menu. So we've set a very high bar. Culinary is super, super important. And then it comes health and then sustainability. Unfortunately, I would love for it to be the other way around, but it starts with taste. And I think people will try us because we're novel and unique, but we need them to come back and buy us again and again. And hopefully what you tasted this morning allows you to do that. That's the whole goal.
Absolutely. Karuna, I can emphasize that statement more. It doesn't matter if it saves the world unless it tastes really good.
Yeah, people do not want to suffer for or sacrifice. So we're trying really hard to get to products that don't involve a sacrifice or a trade-off. So the way I like to think about it, I know we're close on time, is I want to move people from saying, why would I eat this, to why wouldn't I? If it tastes great, it's better for me and better for the planet, why wouldn't I eat it, right? And that's ultimately our goal.
Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate you. I love that conversation. It's a really good product, and I don't often say that. There's some products out there that I've eaten at Whole Foods that have not been that great. I love Nature's Fine. Please find that coupon so you can try them out too.